This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. You know, so far this year, things in the auto industry are not going the way that most automakers expected. COVID's behind us, the chip shortage is over, and so the industry thought it would be busy meeting pent-up demand after years of lower sales. But that's not exactly happening. Stellantis is paying Ram and Jeep dealers a bonus to order more new cars and trucks, something that dealers are reluctant to do because they have so much inventory sitting on their lots. CEO Carlos Tavares is reluctant to cut prices, and the result is that Stellantis has lost 3.5 percentage points of market share since 2020 in the U.S. market, in an industry that fights over every 1/10 of a point of share. And it's not just Stellantis. J.D. Power says that sales incentives from automakers in the American market will average $3,200 per vehicle for the rest of this year. Last year, the average was only $1,900. You can blame higher interest rates and higher car insurance rates for that. Automakers are having to add incentives to offset those higher costs for consumers. And all those EV startups that looked red hot just 2 years ago now wonder what hit them. Lucid is going to fire another 400 employees, or about 6% of its workforce. Sales are well below where the company thought they would be, and it reported a bigger than expected loss in the first quarter. And while you can't call Tesla a startup anymore, it's suffering similar problems. Reuters reports that Tesla cut production of the Model Y at its plant in Shanghai by at least 20% due to weakening demand in China for its cars. And based on new car registrations in the U.S., S&P Global estimates that Tesla sales fell 25% in February and 12% in March, though Tesla says that was because it was supply constrained. Even so, it looks like Tesla has backed off its goal of building 20 million cars by the end of the decade. Its latest impact report, which was published yesterday, no longer makes any mention of that goal. We think that Tesla really needs to consider a significant styling refresh of the Model 3 and Y. Though they're very good cars, they're starting to look stale compared to the new competitors in the market. Yes, we are aware of the changes to the 3 called the Highland and the upcoming changes to the Y called Juniper, but only Tesla fans will notice the difference. To most everybody else, the changes are almost invisible. The one very noticeable styling change that Tesla did make was when it changed the nose of the S and the X, but that was 8 years ago. And take a look at the last 3 generations of the Hyundai Santa Fe. Each generation is a dramatic step forward from the one before, and that's how you keep a model line fresh. When people buy a new car, they want everyone to know they're driving a brand new car. And history shows that the automotive industry is really a fashion industry. And the companies with the newest, freshest designs always rise to the top.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.
Automakers are spending boatloads of money on research and on new models. Here's how much money they spent on R&D last year. Volkswagen Group spent the most, over $23 billion, but it's got a lot of brands to feed. BMW was second highest at $12.7 billion, which is probably paying for a lot of that new class of electric cars that are getting developed. Mercedes is a couple of billion below that. GM spent nearly $10 billion, while Ford was at $8.2 billion. Surprisingly, Toyota's only 6th on the list. Maybe that's because it's not spending so much money developing electric vehicles. Honda and Stellantis came in around $6 billion, which is surprising for Stellantis because it also has a lot of brands to feed. BYD, at $5.4 billion, broke into the top 10, a first for a Chinese car company. And Tesla rounded out the list with just under $4 billion. Amazingly, Hyundai did not even make it into the top 10. More and more heavy truck makers are looking at running diesel engines on hydrogen. No, it's not ideal, but it could be the fastest, easiest, and cheapest way to convert the trucking industry to zero carbon tailpipe emissions. That's especially true if they use green hydrogen. Piston engines actually run more efficiently with hydrogen, though not nearly as efficiently as fuel cells. Even so, it's fairly easy to convert an IC engine to run on hydrogen. Bosch, Toyota, and others are working on it, and Volvo Truck just joined the party. Volvo says it's using high-pressure direct injectors from Westport fuel systems, where a small amount of ignition fuel is injected at high pressure to enable compression ignition before the hydrogen is added. Volvo says it will start testing the trucks on the road next year and hopes to have them in production by the end of the decade. Many believe that developing a hydrogen infrastructure for IC trucks running on hydrogen could actually pave the way faster for adoption of fuel cells. Here's an interesting way BMW is cutting CO2 emissions from its manufacturing process. It's using 3D printed parts on production robots that are lighter, which extends the service life of the robot and allows it to operate faster, which shortens cycle times. And just like a car, reducing weight has a trickle-down effect. If you make a car lighter, you can do things like use smaller shocks and brakes. Making the tools for a robot lighter allows you to use smaller robots, which is how you cut CO2 emissions. But it's not just from the manufacturing process, you also cut emissions when you're making the part. And in other cases, BMW has been able to cut out robots altogether. A newly designed 3D printer robot gripper, which is used to lift carbon fiber roofs and whole floor sections of a car, now weighs just under 100 kilograms, or a little over 200 pounds. But that's roughly 45% lighter than the original tool, which means one robot now can lift an entire roof instead of 3 robots. Beyond gripper tools, BMW makes 3D printed parts for teaching and production aids for employees, and even uses 3D printed parts in its cars. Last year, BMW made about 400,000 3D printed parts across all of its manufacturing sites. Volkswagen is showing off an even sportier version of the Golf GTI called the Clubsport. It features unique styling elements, including special wheels and a large rear spoiler. Under the hood is a 2-liter turbocharged engine that will run on new bioethanol that was developed by Shell during an upcoming race. With that setup, it makes roughly 345 horsepower, which is fed to the front wheels through a front differential lock. We think there could be a production version coming, but for now, this GTI Clubsport is just a one-off. J.D. Power estimates that roughly 1.6 million EVs will be sold in the U.S. this year. That'll be about 10% of the total market, and growth over last year's EV sales, which came in at around 1.1 million. However, according to Elizabeth Career, the head of J.D. Power's EV practices and our guest on yesterday's Autoline After Hours, there's going to be some segments of the EV market that get sliced much thinner than some automakers are planning for.
If the industry is going to sell 16 million vehicles and 10% are EVs, that's 1.6 million EVs this year. Let's take one of the largest segments in the industry, the compact SUV mass market segment. That makes up 17% of industry sales. If we take 17% of the 1.6 million EVs, that's 270,000 compact SUV EVs in the mass market that should sell. Well, guess how many players there are?
Too many.
Seven, and they're big players, right? Toyota, Hyundai, Kia, Volkswagen, Ford, Nissan. So if you divide that 270 up, that's only 38,000 units if you split it evenly. And obviously, not every brand has the same amount of interest, but we know automakers capacitize for more than 38,000 units.
They can't
a
make money
year.
at 38,000, not in the middle market.
Well, and that's where there's going to be this transition as consumer demand catches up with capacity. There's going to need to be incentives in this transition to attract them into the vehicles and to really share in what slice of the pie there is to share.
You know, Elizabeth Creer provides a lot of great insight into the EV market in that show. And if you'd like to watch more, we'll put a link in the transcript and the description box. And a programming note here. We're going to be off for the Memorial Day holiday on Monday. For those of you watching around the world, here in the United States, we always set the day aside to honor the people who have given their lives in service of their country. But we'll be back again here on Tuesday to bring you the latest developments of what's going on in the automotive industry. Thanks for watching.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. Tejan Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility. And by ZF.
Intrepid's NeoVi Pi, allowing automotive engineers to interface, capture, and monitor vehicle data using Raspberry Pi. As a matter of fact, it's the automotive industry's first robust platform for Raspberry Pi, featuring Intrepid CAN-FD technology and Raspberry Pi Compute Module. The NeoVi Pi is designed for automotive environments, allowing use with relative power ranges and applications. In addition, the NeoVi Pi enables you to use the Raspberry Pi for compute while avoiding additional development to adapt to network environments. That makes the NeoVi Pi powerful enough to solve your vehicle network problems, yet small enough to fit in your backpack. One of many Intrepid tools used for developing zonal architecture and software-defined vehicles.
Keeping your heart racing in and out of the gym. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Potenza Sport AS tires with a 50,000-mile limited warranty.
Wards is the industry leader for news, data, and analysis. That's why companies across the globe subscribe to our premium service, maybe even your own. Log in for subscriber access now. Check your company's intranet for details and rely on wardsauto.com to keep you informed.